Hey everyone, hey everyone, hi Facebook audience. I'm gonna let people trickle in, and hello everyone who's catching me here on YouTube. I am not on Twitter, as many of you might know. 12 or 24 hours before Inauguration Day, I got a notice that I was locked out temporarily, but then also told that because of unspecified repeated violations of the so-called civic integrity policy at Twitter, that if I violated that policy again without knowing exactly what the hell it is that I said that triggered it, that my account might be permanently banned. And you know, if there were an opportunity for me to just delete the whole freaking thing, I would have by now. But there's a lot there that I wanted to preserve for people to be able to see. So it's been left dormant, and I'm not streaming on that platform. So if I've got YouTube or Facebook followers that can share the links to this live stream, I hope that you will do it and help be a voice for me. But there are, of course, many other folks who came before me who've experienced far worse in this regard. And I want to get to that. And of course, I'll do follow-up live streams all week long. I'll do a kind of Ask Me Anything at the end of the week. And if any of you have other issues that you want to talk about, especially since I haven't addressed you all basically since before Election Day, we can catch up on all of that. But let me bring in my special guest right away. It is Laura Loomer, the most banned woman in the world. But here we are on these Silicon Valley platforms, and we're going to talk about all of this. How are you doing, Laura?
Well, I'm just doing, I'm surviving in this new world we're living in, this new global reset. So
yeah. Well, to me, it's like your life every day has been one big, I told you so, right?
Yeah, I think that's what 2021 is for me. I've already declared it the Laura Loomer I told you so tour. But as much as I like the fact that I'm being vindicated and proven right, it's still it's bittersweet in a sense, because I was hoping that my investigations and exposés would help improve things. But unfortunately, I think people didn't heed my warnings, in the time that probably would have been appropriate to do so to prevent all of this from happening.
Yeah. Now you've got a new book coming out. I want to make sure that everybody who is watching, make sure to go and, well, you tell me what the best place to go and pre-order the book is. Yeah. Let people know the title and when it's coming out.
So I just finished writing a book called Loomer, How I Became the Most Banned Woman in the World. And it's available for pre-order right now at Barnes & Noble, and also on Amazon, and I believe also on Walmart's website. But you can pre-order the book. It's supposed to be coming out, if all goes according to plan, on May 18th. But it's an autobiography, and it also details, this cancel culture movement from my perspective, and, has a lot of my own perspective and tips on how you can survive it when it happens to you as well.
Definitely will be like a how-to guide for surviving and fighting like the cancel culture. I mean, and you were fighting it before they even had a name for it. So I want to pull up the share screen here because something happened to you, and you've reported on it at loomer.com. Let me bring this piece up right now. Once again, it's I think it's, this is a premonition, because just as you were deplatformed before everyone else was, something that happened to you is going to be happening more and more frequently to conservatives, to nationalists, to populists, to dissidents. And it has to do with both travel and Second Amendment rights. Let me see if I can bring this up.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Do I got it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened. Tell us what this piece is about.
So I wasn't going to go public with this information. It happened several months ago, and I was kind of sitting on the information, waiting to see how to handle it. But I felt compelled to release it, given what's happening in our country right now, as a warning to what is going to happen to other American citizens, especially conservatives, if cancel culture isn't, immediately brought to a screeching halt. During my congressional campaign, several months ago, I was getting a lot of death threats, and I decided that I was going to take the concealed carry course and then go apply for my concealed carry permit. Well, when I applied for the concealed carry permit here in Florida, a few weeks later, I received a letter in the mail that said that I had been denied. And when you apply for a concealed carry, you don't get an explanation as to why your concealed carry is denied. It's either you are or you aren't. And there are many people who have guns and they apply for concealed carry and they're denied for whatever reason, but they're not banned from having a gun. And then there's some people who sometimes their application gets mixed up with someone else's application, and the state has been known to sometimes reject people's concealed carry permits while meaning to do it for somebody else. So they give you an option to appeal. Mind you, they don't give you the explanation. So I filled out the appeal form, and then it was submitted to FDLE, Florida Department of Agriculture as well. And then I received another letter in the mail that said they had reviewed my appeal and that it had been rejected. And then they said, you can find out why. And so I filled out another piece of paper and sent it in. And a few weeks later, I received a letter in the mail that said that the reason why my concealed carry was rejected is because people who are federally prohibited from owning a firearm can't have concealed carry. But I was never told that I was on a list of being federally prohibited from ever owning or possessing a firearm. And in fact, prior to applying for my concealed carry, I actually had a handgun. So I had a handgun while, this list supposedly existed somewhere. No one ever sent me a letter. I don't have a felony. I don't have domestic violence charges. I've never been brought before a judge and told that I'm, mentally unfit during a hearing. That those are really the only three ways that you can be stripped of your gun rights. Right. But what I found out is that this list, it's called the NICS database, which is National Instant Criminal Background Search. And the organization that has the authority, the only organization that has the authority to put you on this list is the FBI. And so I was put on this list apparently shortly after I confronted James Comey at his book signing when he was then, the director of the FBI, but no one ever told me. And so, I haven't been able to purchase a firearm. I can't have a concealed carry. I'm not even allowed to go to, a gun range and shoot a gun because according to, attorneys I've consulted with, even photos of me just having a gun in my hand could get me prison time. So, this is a problem. It's called being red flagged. And I, as many people know, have been the canary in the coal mine as the most banned woman in the world, banned on every single social media site. My congressional campaign was not even allowed to have social media, despite the fact that President Trump endorsed me and voted for me here in District 21, where he's, a permanent resident now. But this is what's going to happen. First, they start with your social media. Then it's the banks, and then they red flag you, and other people are starting to experience this as well. And I was not in Washington D.C. for the protest on January 6th. I was actually in El Salvador for several weeks finishing up my book. But when I returned, I was not allowed at the airport to grab my own suitcases. I was separated from everybody else on my flight into this holding area. And a DHS officer let everybody else get their bags, and then they wouldn't let me touch my bags. And then a DHS officer grabbed my bags from baggage claim and then made me go to this other area where I was questioned by two DHS officers about my Wikipedia page. They asked me if the information on my Wikipedia was accurate. And then they also asked me, if I planned on writing anything about what happened in DC. And so conservatives are being targeted, right? And like I said, I was not in DC for the rally, but you saw the videos and the many social media posts of Trump supporters being put on no-fly lists and pilots literally grounding flights because they didn't want to transport Trump supporters.
Yeah, that's right. And many of these planes and airlines employing flight attendants with clear social justice, pro-Antifa, pro-BLM, anti-Trump sympathies. And, we talked about this sort of off air a couple of weeks ago about, I am very, very wary about getting on a plane and putting myself in a situation where I'm essentially hostage to people who are hostile to my political views. And One of the reasons why this is so troubling, Laura, and why I think this story really should be headline national news. Our old friends at Fox should be talking about it. I'd love it if Tucker Carlson was up in arms about what's happening to you, because once again, you are that canary in the coal mine, a harbinger of a threat. It's a threat on multiple levels, because of course this is about political censorship and your First Amendment rights. It's about the threat to your Second Amendment rights, and it is appalling. And I know you're not the only one here, but you are the most visible of targets where you were not informed that you had essentially been disarmed, right? And then
the setup, if you think about it, and that's what's most concerning to me, is that you see, people will say, oh, you can't say for a fact that the feds are trying to set you up. Well, you and I both have common acquaintances and people we know who were interrogated by the FBI and door stopped and had their homes searched and raided by the feds in the days leading up to the protests on the Capitol. And they were also, some of these same people or people who attended were also arrested and had their homes raided by the feds after the fact. And so what's to say that I never applied for a concealed carry? Let's just say that I never applied and I still had that handgun in my home. And the feds were to doorstop me ahead of this rally if I had stayed in the country and not, had the common sense to leave the country, knowing that this was going to be and you and I talked about this too ahead of time when I was like, are you in DC? I texted you from El Salvador. You're like, this is going to be Charlottesville 2.0. They're going to use this to just justify banning everybody. Yeah. And so what would happen? What if they came in and they searched my place and found the gun? Would I could potentially be in prison for 10 years on a federal firearms, felony. So people don't realize that the FBI, they do these things to set people up. And it should freak every American out that, here in Florida, you don't have to have a license to have a gun. You don't even have to register your gun. Somebody can give you a gun and that's totally legal, So the fact that you can be federally prohibited and not even know about it and have a gun and then potentially go to prison for something that's totally out of your control is shocking, and it should scare everybody.
It is terrifying. And, I candidly, Laura, I'm getting sick of all of the warnings from people on our side of the aisle about how bad things are in China or other socialist communist countries. When this is happening here in America with American authorities doing this, and the idea that there is now a political and ideological litmus test applied to travelers. I mean, freedom of movement is such a fundamental constitutional right, bedrock principle of the founding of this country. And you were flying back to our homeland from outside the country. But imagine now all of the people who are thinking, well, and I'm one of them, I don't know if I want to get on a plane.
Well, another thing that I find really troubling too is how they try to set conservatives up, right? And I'm talking about the feds. So look at what they did to Roger Stone and General Flynn. They tried to put General Flynn in prison on the claim that he supposedly lied to the FBI. And lying to a federal law enforcement officer, whether it's DHS or FBI, can get you sent to prison. Yeah. And so the fact that DHS is utilizing a radical leftist site known as Wikipedia that doesn't even allow conservatives to have access to edit their accounts and just spews hatred and lies, the fact that a federal officer is putting me in that position by, one, utilizing Wikipedia as a source to interrogate me, and two, giving me basically an ultimatum to answer a yes or no question when he asks me, is the information about you on your Wikipedia page accurate? Well, some of it is, but the part that basically calls me a right-wing neo-Nazi isn't, So am I going to go to prison for lying to a federal law enforcement officer if I say, no, it's not accurate, and then they say that something is accurate?
Yeah.
They don't, it should be. And then when I ask him, I said to him, I go, I've never had this happen. I've traveled to Dubai, I've been to Israel, I've been to Greece where I did undercover work, I've been to South Africa, I've been all over the world, and I have never, even when traveling to the Middle East, I have never had somebody ask me about my Wikipedia page and my journalism. And so I think that it's really shocking. And what I said is, how do people get selected for this? I mean, I've never had anybody ask me about my Wikipedia. He goes, "Oh, DHS has created an algorithm." So an algorithms can be programmed with bias. I mean, we already know Facebook and Twitter lied about their algorithms not being politically biased against conservatives, and then Project Veritas caught them on tape. So who exactly is constructing the DHS algorithm, and why aren't members of Congress demanding that DHS officials testify before Congress and provide transparency about how they're utilizing algorithms?
Yeah, well, when you've got SPLC and ADL working in concert with Silicon Valley to design these things, it's pretty clear who's probably behind this. I brought up this form that was, I guess it was in your bag. Explain what this is.
So they gave that to me after the fact. So I told you how I wasn't allowed to go get my own bags at baggage claim. They basically made me wait there, and I've never had a DHS officer get my bags for me. And so it says right there, multiple inspection referral, and then they had that form in their hand while they took my suitcases and walked me to this back room where two other DHS officers opened my suitcases on a table while they were interrogating me and asking me about my Wikipedia page, literally unpacking every single item in my suitcase. And when I say every item, I mean, they went through my garment bag that had my bras and underwear, and they unzipped it. And, like, you had these two men, like, is this necessary? I mean, it's just, you go to TSA, and I just think it's so interesting. When I was living in New York, they had TSA agents wearing full-blown burqas and hijabs, but, supposedly, that's okay if you're Sharia compliant and you're working TSA. But if you're a conservative, you're going to be treated like, you're a terrorist.
Yeah. So you put up a red flag about your red flagging, and you would think that leading Second Amendment and gun rights influencers and personalities would be helping you spread the message and beat the drum, but apparently not. Talk about the criticism that you received from some of these people. And yeah, go ahead.
So, just like when I was banned from all the social media sites and I warned people said, "Oh, it's just Laura Loomer. Oh, it's just Alex Jones. Oh, it's just Milo. It's just Gavin. It's just Tommy. It's just, all the people who they said pushed too far or were too controversial."
Right.
Even though we warned people, and what we said wasn't even, anything that would be bannable. But now I was horrified to see some conservatives kind of laugh it off or say that, this wasn't a big deal or that I was overreacting. And, given that I'm high profile and I ran for Congress and the president voted for me, you'd think that gun rights advocates and Second Amendment groups would be wanting to help me, and people who make money by having their, Second Amendment podcast. And one of the people who, wrote a commentary piece about this was Cam Edwards, who has his podcast with the NRA, which just filed for bankruptcy, of course. So who knows how much longer that will last. But it was just a very snarky, nasty piece saying that I claimed that I was on some secret list when they know that this exists, right? They know that these lists are real. And I listed in my article all the reasons why you can be red flagged, right? But he tried to act like, oh, silly Laura Loomer, she's just trying to grift off people to, get legal fees that she's going to pocket. And, maybe she ought to, read online and see what the reasons are for being red flagged, as if I don't already know. I mean, clearly I know, because I posted the documentation from the process in which I ask, and they actually do not provide you with a reason. You have to get a lawyer to, look into this for you. We've already done all of the paperwork that I could possibly do, and now it requires me seeing a lawyer, and I have a meeting with an attorney tomorrow. So, it's just a boys club. They didn't do this to James O'Keefe, who I used to work for when the same thing happened to him. There was outrage and people posted articles about it, and they said, oh, this is an infringement of his rights. And they didn't chastise O'Keefe when he raised money to sue the FBI to restore his gun rights. But for me, it's a laughing matter, but it's not going to be a laughing matter when they come for them too.
Yeah, no question about it. And these types of people are very familiar with how this all works, and that these lists are kept. And it happens, in many different areas and jurisdictions of the federal government. And several years ago, I had whistleblowers who were fighting this in the VA. and there's a red flag system. They keep a list of veterans that they consider troublesome, and it's no coincidence that many of them are right-minded and outspoken about conservative, anti-government or small government politics. And they actually have a secret committee called the Disruptive Behavior Committee. And it's just very simple for them to psychologize politics with which they disagree. So, of course, anybody who believes the things that we believe is crazy or mentally defective, right? And then the next thing you know, you're on the list and you can't appeal it. You don't know why you were put on the list.
Exactly.
So, of course, that's exactly how it happened to you.
They do. They say, oh, she's crazy. She's a lunatic. She's a conspiracy theorist. Okay, that's not up for people on Wikipedia or the left to decide. You know, some people say I'm crazy. Other people say I'm brilliant. You know, I think that it's egregious that DHS officers are using algorithms and then they're using Wikipedia, which defames and trashes me as some like cuckoo, you know, Looney Tune conspiracy theorist. When if you are, and there are people, right? There are people who lose their gun rights for, like I said, domestic violence felonies, or they're deemed mentally unfit by a judge. But that's up to a judge to decide. That's not up for some leftist SPLC or right-wing watch radical sitting behind a desk with access to Wikipedia to decide for them, the DHS to use to politically target conservatives, you know, or the FBI.
Yeah, right. I just want to.
It's not like it's a conspiracy theory either. Like, let's stop pretending like I'm overreaching by saying the FBI targets conservatives. I mean, you can't say that Donald Trump was a victim of a coup and that General Flynn and Roger Stone were set up by the FBI, and then say Laura Loomer's crazy for saying she's targeted by the FBI. I mean,
yeah, that's right. Well, you get to pick and choose, right? I just wanted to read from this letter. I brought it up before, but this is the letter that you had received from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And it says, after review, based upon information received and information in the NICS database, it has been determined that you're still prohibited from purchasing or possessing a firearm. And just to clarify, there's no way for you to appeal this. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, like I said, I had filled out the appeal process for the concealed carry permit, and then that's when I received this. And so, no, the only way to further, take this further is to basically sue to be removed, like James O'Keefe did. He sued the FBI when they basically red flagged him too. And that's why I'm meeting with an attorney tomorrow, because I've had private background checks done on me with people who have access to these databases, the same databases, right? The same databases. I mean, I know FBI agents, I know DHS officers, I know people who have access to these databases, and I have a spotless record. There's nothing in there, So it goes to show you that somebody maliciously put me on this list because, like I said, there's three things: domestic violence, okay, a felony, or a judge deeming you mentally unfit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ridiculous. Not even my misdemeanors from when I got arrested for trespassing are on my record because they've been expunged.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done my homework on this,
Yeah. Well, people can help out. And at the end of this article, you've got links to how to help out and donate. I mean, you've got multiple legal battles that you are waging, and now you've got one more.
Yeah, and I just, I don't appreciate people like Cam Edwards telling people or insinuating that I don't properly use these funds. I have a meeting with an attorney tomorrow, and I'm more than happy to, publicly disclose my legal fees regarding this matter. And I clearly say, if you scroll up, the whole purpose I'm doing this and being open is because I want to document it. If you scroll up even further, I say, this is why it's so important to challenge this now, because I'm confident that I can have the red flag reviewed and publish the information and document the process, right? Which includes how much this is going to cost, because my whole point in proving this is, thank God, people know who I am and that I'm a public figure, because your average person can't come up with $10,000 or $20,000 to fight this. And so I'm blessed that I have supporters who can donate, because basically the feds are going to financially strong arm and essentially extort conservative Americans into getting their God-given constitutional rights back. And it's an abomination.
This is so important. And so many people either deliberately misunderstand what you're about and why you do what you do. They either deliberately misunderstand it or they just have such limited powers of comprehension. You know, because one of the things that you're often accused of, and I have been as well over the course of my career, is, oh, well, you're just such an attention seeker and this is always about you. And like you said with Cam Edwards and these types of people. And, you know, there does seem to be sort of a male component about this as well sometimes. Well, you're just a drama queen, right? It's like the whole point is, if the things that are happening to you now are happening, they could happen to anybody. And you're leveraging the megaphone that you do have. And Laura, it's extraordinary that despite all of the deplatforming that's happening to you, all of the places that you've been banned from and your rights stripped away, that you still have an immense amount of power. And you're using it not because you're self-aggrandizing, not because it's all about you, but you're trying to have this object lesson so that other people are equipped and armed and able to fight it if it happens to them.
Yeah, and exactly. And I appreciate you saying that, because it's not like this benefits me. And like I said, too, in the bold, I really didn't even want to release this. That's why I sat on this information during my congressional campaign, because I'm a single woman in my 20s. And it kind of actually puts me at a really big security risk when I don't have a way to defend myself and I'm getting threats from people. And so, you know, coming out there publicly about this isn't really doing anything for me. It's not like I'm making money off of this, and I don't want to have to raise money. I mean, I would love for a gun rights organization to take this up, or any of the, you know, outspoken Second Amendment attorneys that go on Fox News all the time to take up my case pro bono. But I haven't received any phone calls, despite the fact that this has been pushed out. You know, I really don't like having to do all this fundraising because it's a real pain, and I don't like asking people for money. But what am I supposed to do, you know?
Yeah. Right. So to the point of you always being ahead of the curve, this is somebody who works for something called All American Radio, tweeted this out last night with an exclusive apparently that they have. I don't know if you can see this. Trump staffers find their TSA global entry status revoked. And I guess she has a screenshot from some unidentified person. And this is happening now, apparently en masse, all based on working for the Trump administration. And we know that the Lincoln Project and others are building all of these target lists, hit lists of people to witch hunt them. And just like you now, they're, you know, I mean, I imagine that their freedom of movement is tethered to their freedom of speech, freedom of you know, being able to get a job, freedom of association, and speech rights.
Again, I was told, oh, Laura Loomer is such a drama queen. That's what happens when you come back from a country that has tons of MS-13. Like, okay, yeah, every single other person is allowed except for me. And then 2 weeks later, this happens. And what did I say when I released this? I said, wow, it almost looks like, you know, ahead of the Biden admin, DHS is being weaponized. You have federal agencies being weaponized to target Trump supporters when they're traveling.
Yeah.
And now you see this global entry system is also monitored and controlled by DHS, because it's DHS that oversees TSA.
Yeah.
Or they work, you know, in conjunction with each other, because the people who interrogate you and TSA takes you through security are DHS officers.
Yeah, right. So, you know, just like as has been the template of your career in every single day, 3 months from now or 6 months from now, this is going to break into the so-called mainstream, and all the people that ignored you warning about this are going to appropriate it and pretend that they broke the story, and we'll finally have, you know, hearings, right, the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's like, it's very emotionally abusive too, when you think about it. And I hate to have to use that term, but you know, the way they use certain people as punching bags, right? Just people who they can just make fun of and punch up in the media. And then we're going to have to basically pretend like all these Trump staffers are such victims when they talk about how they're detained and questioned about their politics at the airport. Just like I'm going to have to sit here and be told that I'm a grifter and an attention whore when, you know, a few months from now, when some outspoken male, you know, Trump supporting conservative tries to go buy a gun, he's told that he's on the federal, you know, prohibition list, after, and then it's going to be, you know, the biggest scandal ever. So it's really unfair, and it's very unfortunate that they do this, because it only hurts conservatives on a whole when they decide to make certain people the punching bag on the left and the right.
Well, all you can do is keep shedding light, keep moving forward, just like Dory from Finding Nemo, right? Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
I don't plan on giving up. I have pretty thick skin. You know, if I didn't have thick skin, I would have given up a long time ago, because it's not easy what they do, and I'm sure they're going to come up with something else as well. But look, it's already happening. Joe Biden's administration. This is what I've been trying to tell people, right? When the Democrats say, "Oh, we're not going to ban all your guns," Joe Biden knows that he would cause chaos in this country if he said we're going to ban your guns. So the way you ban people's guns is by designating them as domestic terrorists or putting them on the no-fly list, which is what they're doing to all these people who attended the rally. I'm not even talking about people who stormed the Capitol. Just people who attended the rally are now being doorstopped by the FBI. I know several people here in Palm Beach who were questioned by the FBI simply because they went with a Christian group on a bus and attended the rally. They weren't even inside the Capitol.
Yeah.
And then when you're on the no-fly list, you can't have a gun. So that's how they're going to ban people's guns and that. So you're not even going to know. And then God forbid you don't even know you're on the list and you have a gun. Well, they're going to charge you and they're going to send you to prison on a felony firearms charge. And for each one, you get 4 years in prison. So, you know, I had one gun, but a lot of people have more than one guns. I mean, trust me, if I could, I'd have a lot of guns.
Yeah.
So 4 to 5 years in prison.
Yeah. So last question. Of course, you ran for Congress to be able to do what so many Republicans have failed to do, and that is to actually represent your constituents. And, you know, here we have every Republican who's been endorsed by the NRA and taken their money. And instead of fighting red flag laws, you've got people like Dan Crenshaw who promotes them. So what advice do you have for people they're looking for, and, you know, they can support you, but in terms of how to find representation with these groups that are supposed to be representing the Second Amendment, where do they go? What do they do?
Well, look, I think that it starts with cutting off the party from the money that keeps them going, right? It's a lifeline that allows them to keep going with their subversive and manipulative and backstabbing traitorous practices. And so people need to stop giving money to the Republican Party. I mean, you just need to stop. And all these things like WinRed and all these different groups that go around saying that they're going to like divide the funds and give them to candidates. The only way you can ensure that your money is going to the candidate you want, whether, you know, and I'm talking about in the past, whether it was me or President Trump, is by going to their official campaign website and donating yourself. Yeah. Because chances are when the GOP or the RNC or any other site says they're going to be giving somebody money, they're not. And it's not like the establishment is inspiring. They don't have people who are following them like, oh, you're so inspirational, let me send you, you know, $25 right now. No, it's a giant pool, and that's what they do. They send out messages pretending to support the president. They raise $400 million. They use $6 million of it on legal fees. And where's the rest of the other money? It's like what they did during my campaign, where the NRCC said, let's send fighters to Congress, okay? And I was told that they even used my name while not supporting me just so they could raise money because I was a popular candidate, but I didn't even get any of the money.
Right.
$200 million, and they only gave 81 candidates $5,000. So if you do the math, that's $451,000 or so. And where's the rest of the, you know, $199.5 million, right?
Yeah.
So just give your money to candidates directly. Cut off the lifeline for the GOP. You need to basically need to make them come squealing into submission or until they just retire, because they're not going to have any money to keep themselves going, because otherwise we're never going to get out of this toxic cycle. It's like an abusive relationship.
It definitely is, and it's been going on for a long time. So that's great concrete advice, people. If you aren't already doing it, cut out the middlemen and the GOP establishment money launderers. That's essentially what they are.
Subscribe from their emails too, because I can't tell you how pissed off I was yesterday. I got an email that I got. It was like, oh, from the GOP, you're one of our top supporters, but it's your last chance to prove whether you're a real Republican. It's like, excuse me, like I've dedicated 10 years of my life since I was, I'll be 28 in a few months. Since I was 18 years old, like presidents of college Republicans, working for Republican candidates, going undercover with Project Veritas, then running for Congress myself, like for them the lack of self-awareness when Americans are struggling financially right now and they're out of work and the government can't seem to get off their ass to do more than send us a $1,400 or $600 stimulus check, like that's going to even pay my rent.
Yeah. What we really need right now is for Ronna McDaniel to tell us that we've been insufficiently committed to the conservative cause.
Yeah. Hey, that's Romney McDaniel.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Laura, it was so great catching up with you. And, like I said, as long as I have these platforms, this is streaming on YouTube and Facebook. We'll keep revisiting what's going on with you, and excited about the book launch coming up. Everybody go visit loomer.com. And you are on alternative platforms. I just want to make sure I follow you on Telegram, is the one that I like the most. Anywhere else you want people?
I'm on Telegram. It's Loomered Official. And then I'm on Gab at Laura Loomer. And then Parler. Hopefully Parler gets back up. I mean, I hope they're able to solve, the issues that they're dealing with right now. But I am on those other sites. And then, like I said, you can go to my website, loomered.com, and subscribe. And then just be sure to pre-order my book, Loomered, How I Became the Most Banned Woman in the World.
Awesome. And everyone, I will see you tomorrow for tomorrow's live stream. That's it for today. Take care.